is brought to you by the Patterns of Possibility, where we help people make more meaningful relationships in both their personal and professional life. Hi, I'm Coach Lee Hopkins. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I want to welcome you to the Engaged Employee Podcast. Our mission is to emphasize the relationship between the employee and the workplace with the goal of enhancing engagement levels to create a more productive and satisfying work environment. While many organizations strive to create a more engaging atmosphere, they often miss the mark by forcing connection with big team building events like axe throwing or escape rooms. Those activities only leave employees with a short-lived sense of belonging. Organizations may also try smaller and more suffocating events like happy hours or group birthday celebrations that their employees feel obligated to attend. As a social connections and business culture coach, I've found that to create a stable, engaged, and productive workforce, there needs to be a shift in focus from mandatory fun and manufactured connection towards building trust and authentic conversation. Join me and a guest as we dive into social wellness strategies for the individual employee, techniques for developing interpersonal relationships with coworkers, and even some approaches for leaders to enrich the overall organizational culture. The Engaged Employee Podcast starts now. Welcome to the Engaged Employee Podcast. My name is Coach Lee, and my guest today is Aaron Perry. Aaron Perry is a certified peer recovery specialist for Shin Clinic and co-founder of Recovery Unbroken. His role with Shin gives him a frontline role in assisting job seekers through the difficult recovery. He believes that employee empowerment and company culture is a two-way street of wellness, that companies are better off when they don't overlook talented professionals because of societal stigma. He himself is a single father of 3 kids, is in substance use recovery from alcohol, and has been sober now for 2.5 years. His work experience ranged from elected official and Congressional Campaign Manager to the work pod in Milwaukee County Jail. Our conversation today will be focused on wellness for the company culture at large. Aaron, welcome to the podcast.
Great to be here.
It is wonderful to have you. So you're the very first who is going to talk about this very important and I think sensible issue to speak about, because we're all human beings. We all have our struggles. We all have our challenges, no matter what it is. And we don't want to hush anything. We want to talk about everything, all facets of human. So tell us a bit about who you are and how did you got into this?
Yeah, I got into being a CPRS or a certified peer recovery specialist. My own journey through recovery, and then my previous experience in leadership and dealing with people a lot. Thankfully, the light bulb went off for me a little bit more than 2.5 years ago, and really put me on a path to being in a position now to not only just live a good, healthy life, but also share my views based on a lot of my previous experiences, and then help current clients, both, as you mentioned, kind of on the front lines here in the Twin Cities with clients face to face, as well as with Recovery Unbroken, where we have access to give support to people anywhere in the country, and in fact, anywhere in the world.
Absolutely. It's wonderful to be able to connect with people who actually may not have access to the services, because they're just like therapy. It's really expensive to go through this, and they know that they need help and support, but it makes it difficult to get it. And so you help people get that support that they need. I'd like to ask you about how does this show up in the workplace? So I understand you help people who are going through the sober process to find a job, find a career, to build their life. Can you tell us about how you do that and how do you help them?
Yeah, a large part of my job is to share my lived experiences and advocate for people who have been in positions that I've been in. So for them to have someone to look to, and my experience, thankfully, in doing a lot of hiring and firing and being in several different varieties of work and corporate culture, um, has put me in a position to kind of help guide them and even like a role play with them into what an interview is going to look like, into knowing that, their self-worth, just because they may be struggling in one aspect of their life, that they should have the equal opportunity as everyone else to go into an interview and go into a first day of work and a first year of work without stigma, and to have all the same benefits that everybody else does.
Absolutely. We all deserve that grace to be able to connect with other people. That's what I've been looking for my entire life. And alcohol had been a struggle for me as well. So it was pretty difficult to go to work and to do some of those things. And I'd be curious to know, because my employer didn't interact with me or anything like that. I don't know what the expectation was, or how I needed to, if I needed to ask for help, or if there was help available. Well, I actually didn't have the awareness that I needed any help with that. So I'd be curious of how you work with organizations to help them create this atmosphere that is accepting.
Well, I think addressing it from both a wellness and then corporate culture or company culture, and understanding that, that's why I like this topic in particular, because because those can be two separate things. And oftentimes that's the way that companies approach it. They have wellness and then they want to promote culture. So they have events and stuff like that that's not very long lasting. But what I found in examples like Recovery Unbroken is the community aspect has really been kind of the glue that's held together a lot of recovery. And I also think it's the community aspect that can help really grow employee engagement in companies, and that this is wellness for company culture. So when you start combining those two and having those two things work hand in hand together, that we do take care of wellness. Things like, work-life balance doesn't mean that you work 50 hours and you get 2 off. That's not a great balance. And all the way to, having worked in several different places, seeing the substance abuse issue in the country and now seeing it through a different lens, that is a huge opportunity. Huge opportunity. We're spending 40 plus hours a week now. Many times back in the workplace, we've had a change, in work atmosphere since post-pandemic, that there's a lot there to be wellness, to be addressed from a wellness standpoint. And it absolutely can affect company culture, and it makes it more sustainable when those two things work together. Like I mentioned, it's a two-way street.
Absolutely. I do believe it's a two-way street, just like you do. I'm curious about the wellness for the company culture. And if you could expand a little bit on that, how you may help the organization create this culture that is for wellness. What is it that you do to help promote that?
Well, I believe it's, communicating with, business leaders that, a better way to approach this isn't necessarily, we've all been trained for years and decades that, a lot of times discipline is the way to go as opposed to empathy or understanding. And that's going to promote that community atmosphere, that family atmosphere that a lot of companies usually talk about, that we're a family, but that's not really the case. Is understanding what each employee needs and that it's individual, and taking the time to make sure that they feel heard at work. And those are things that, the more and more we just need to continue, like you mentioned in your interim, is having those conversations.
Having the conversations about what it looks like to have more empathy and understanding rather than discipline. Because I think that, like you said, to your point, it brings people together. I know I would not want to share with you, I wouldn't want to open up, I wouldn't want to get support if I knew I couldn't get that in the first place, if I knew I was going to get a firm smack on the hand or some kind of disciplinary action. So facilitating those kind of conversations, is that what you do to help just facilitate, sit down with leaders and facilitate and say, this is how it looks?
Yeah, and I start at home. I start with uh, trying to be that example for my clients, and
Mm,
and I'll honestly be that example for the folks that I work with here at Shin. Is I've sat down with them and been very clear with them, and as far as the things that are important to me are passion and purpose, being compensated, and having control over my schedule. Being a single dad, it's important that I have time with my kids.
mm-hmm.
I found through recovery that money doesn't make me happy, but it does enable happiness for other people, and it helps justify and bring home the purpose, which is, once we check those boxes, um, and if those boxes are checked, I feel safe and secure here, and that is the best version of me that they're going to get 40 to 50 hours a week. And if
Wow.
you're a leader, isn't that exactly what you want? And we need to, I think we need to listen to employees a lot more, because employees are the ones that will guide us really to the success. When we focus too much on results and less about the people in the process, then we kind of lose our way.
Absolutely. I think the people do the process that create the results. So we have to take care of those people in that. And I really liked how you encompass and you embody this idea of being the demonstration or being the example. So you set the example of what it could look like if you have these kind of conversations about empathy, about connection, about community, that you will get someone who works as hard as you do and still feels fulfilled. They're not losing anything because they're pouring into you as a person, and you show that to other organizations. So one of the things that you do, we touched upon, you have a community that brings people together too, and I really enjoy community. That's one of the things that drew me to you, actually, was the fact that you have a community full of people. I found that, for me personally, the most exciting thing about life is to connect with those peers who understand and appreciate you. So can you tell us a bit about your community, Recovery Unbroken?
Yeah, it's something I'm very excited about and very passionate about, because my recovery journey brought me to a variety of places. Um, you know, Treatment 11 times, and really the glue that's the analogy I continue to use, because it's true, is it held together everything I learned in all of those treatment experiences. It brought that all together and really gave me what I was needing, and which was that peer-to-peer support. And what we've managed to do in about a year's time now is take something very organic and put some structure around it, and some promotion behind it, and some talent and training. And honestly, we've listened to our members. Our group is not about one person or personality or any one modality. It's about community, and it's about the members. And we stick to alcohol recovery. We also do address mental health, but we stick to, well, that's what we do well, and that's what we stick to. But it's enabled people to get that support with having meetings 3 times a week, having a private messaging server in your pocket 24 hours a day. So those folks that may not have the greatest internet connection, or may not have a treatment center right in their backyard, we have members in Europe. We've had folks join us on calls from Australia, the Bahamas, Mexico, Canada, about 34 of the 50 states. Um, and our outcomes are excellent. That's really the end all be all to this. Is It's been a joy to not only grow my own recovery in this group and then lead it with my business partner, who happens to also be my girlfriend. Her and I, it's been a great support. We're both in recovery, and we both she works in the recovery field full time, as do I, and so we're able to kind of bring that knowledge to these folks, and that support, as well as feed our own recovery. And that's been a great connection for people,
Yeah,
again, in different regions of the country, especially, and us all coming together in
yeah.
October should be pretty fun.
That's really fantastic. That is really it is all about community and people who share the similar experiences and can help and support you so that you know that you're not alone in these experiences that you have, whether it is just being by yourself and being like, I don't know what to do with my hands. I need to talk to somebody, or
Exactly.
whatever is stressing you out, have a conversation about it. Talk to someone. Yeah, I know I was stressed out too, and this is what I've done. This is what I've done to help myself. And just having that conversation is really, really helpful. It's really helpful. So, Aaron, I have to ask you one last question. So we're talking about wellness for the companies at large. What is one actionable step or one step that you would suggest companies do to help in aiding people with this, with their sobriety and connection and community?
Well, I would, encourage that understanding and empathy, and also look into, if you don't have a role in your company, expanding the role of having something resource related, and not just from an HR standpoint, something more on the kind of the peer-to-peer aspect, because that is what helps. There are a lot of conversations that employees will have with a peer that they won't have with an HR representative.
Absolutely.
Knowing what those resources are, they could be local, they could be national, they could be international, they could be virtual, they could be live. Just people knowing, in the workplace, again, where so much of our psychology and our mental health and our development is shaped, we need that support, and we also need up-to-date support.
Absolutely.
I support AA. I've been to a lot of AA meetings, but AA needs to not be the only option that we only mention to people if they're struggling with alcoholism and they're in the workplace. So
Absolutely.
there's lots out there, and there's a good fit for everybody. That's the huge benefit we have now, as opposed to 5, 10, 15 years ago. The world's just very different. There's more resources today for wellness in company culture than there ever has been.
Absolutely. Than there ever has been. And you are one of those resources too. You're one of those resources. So Aaron, tell us, where can our audience find you?
Yeah, so the website's recoveryunbroken.com, as well as kaishinclinic.com. So if you're local in the Minneapolis area, here we're an MAT clinic, medication assisted therapy. We have psychology, we have intensive outpatient, and then we have a housing program as well that I work pretty closely with. Recovery Unbroken, again, I'm one of the co-founders of that. So you can check out those two there, as well as on social media, on LinkedIn, Aaron Perry. If you put in CPRS, I'll pop up on there.
All right. And I understand you also have a Threads account. If you're new to this is a new social media that's popping up, part of Instagram, but Threads. And then you also have a TikTok, which is pretty cool. That's really fun and free to watch those two, because you do a lot of family stuff, but also you talk about the sobriety piece too, as well. So well-rounded social media. Well, Aaron, I want to thank you for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you again.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
Thanks.
Another insightful episode of the Engaged Employee Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the deep dive into the world of employee engagement, leadership, and workplace dynamics. The Engaged Employee Podcast is brought to you by the Patterns of Possibility, where we help people make more meaningful relationships in both their personal and professional life. Before we wrap up, we want to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our incredible guests and, of course, our loyal listeners. Your support keeps us motivated to bring you valuable content each week. If you found today's discussion thought-provoking and want to learn more about how we can help you or your organization make more meaningful relationships, go to patternsofpossibility.com and book a friendly conversation with me. Or you can email me your questions at patternsofpossibility@gmail.com. Stay connected with us and engage with fellow listeners by following the Patterns of Possibility on LinkedIn. You can also catch us on YouTube. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell to stay in the loop. And If you prefer the audio version, make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Your support means the world to us, and by subscribing, you'll never miss an episode. Thank you for being a part of our journey to create workplaces where passion meets productivity. Until next time, I'm Coach Lee. Stay engaged, stay inspired.